That morning, they didn't just destroy my great-grandfather's bridge, they crushed my family's legacy. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I opened the floodgate and drained the very lake their $4 million resort depended on, and as the water receded, so did every mask they wore. But what Victoria Harlow didn't know was I had already set the second bomb. They thought it was just stone. But that bridge, my great-grandfather, Walter Dean, built it in 1924 with his bare hands. Hand-cut limestone. Mortar mixed in the freezing rain. It connected our family's cabin to the main road before Oak Ridge Shores even had a name. Every July, we'd walk across it to celebrate the day it was finished, July Day. That morning marked exactly 100 years. But instead of fireworks, I heard diesel engines. Instead of laughter, I heard concrete cracking. They chose that day to destroy it, on purpose. Victoria Harlow stood at the edge in her spotless white heels, watching the bulldozer crush each stone like it was personal. And for her, it was. She didn't just want the bridge gone, she wanted our name erased from the lake forever. 6:03 a.m. The lake was still. Fog hung low like a sleeping ghost. I was on the dock, coffee in hand, listening to loons, when I heard it. A deep, grinding roar, not thunder, not nature, machines. Then, through the mist, a yellow bulldozer appeared crawling across the earth like a war tank. Behind it, 2 trucks, men in hard hats, radios crackling. I ran. I screamed. Stop, but they didn't flinch. They had papers, they had orders. Victoria Harlow didn't even turn to look at me at first. She stood with arms crossed, smug as ever. When she finally did speak, her words sliced like ice. It's already done. No warning. No meeting. No vote. She'd planned this. And the worst part, that bulldozer crushed the first stone at 6:07 a.m., exactly 100 years to the minute since Walter laid it down. Victoria Harlow wasn't just cruel. She was calculated. She moved to Oak Ridge Shores 2 years ago from Scottsdale, bought a lakefront mansion, and within 6 months bulldozed her way to HOA president. She didn't care about history. She cared about appearances. She was the kind of person who called the cops on kids selling lemonade, the kind who measured grass with a ruler. Power wasn't enough. She needed control. Total, absolute. As the bridge crumbled, she smirked and turned to me. This eyesore was dragging down property values. You're lucky we didn't bill you for the demolition. Then she tossed a stack of papers at my chest. Signed, sealed, legal. But I saw it immediately. The seal was off. The signatures were wrong. Fake permits. Forged documents. And standing next to her, a sleazy lawyer for hire smirking like it was all just business. This wasn't over. I wasn't just angry, I was humiliated. Right there in front of neighbors, contractors, and cameras. Victoria didn't stop at legal threats. She dug deeper with words meant to wound. That worthless pile of rubble, it's been dragging this community down for decades. Your family's legacy. It's a stain on progress. Soon, the name Dean will mean nothing here. She made sure to bring an audience. A few supportive neighbors cheered as the final arch cracked. Only later did I learn they weren't neighbors at all. They were paid actors, literally hired to clap record and post online. The narrative was set. I was the bitter recluse, the angry man clinging to a crumbling past. In less than an hour, Victoria didn't just destroy my bridge. She tried to destroy my reputation. But that was her first mistake. She thought I'd walk away. She had no idea what was coming. The days after the demolition felt like living in enemy territory. It started small petty fines from the HOA. $250 for a non-compliant mailbox. $400 for a weathered fishing net on my dock. But then it escalated. One night I found my shed door smashed. Next morning the power was out, someone had cut the main line. Trash dumped across my yard. Then came the messages. Blocked numbers, voicemails filled with static, and threats. Stay quiet, or you'll regret it. We know where you sleep. Victoria didn't sign them. She didn't have to. Her security patrol, run by her brother-in-law, began parking outside my cabin at night. Floodlights aimed straight at my windows. Someone rang the bell at 3 a.m., then vanished. It wasn't just harassment. It was psychological warfare. But she forgot one thing I don't break. I calculate. Victoria's next move was surgical. Destroy my credibility. She flooded the local HOA message boards with lies. He's unstable. Used to be a drunk. Threatened neighbors with tools. Fake complaints started piling up. People I'd known for years stopped waving. Some crossed the street when I walked by. And then the worst hit my job. Anonymous emails sent to my employer. Claims I was under investigation linked to domestic disturbances. HR called me in. I could see it in their eyes, they'd read it all. No one said it out loud, but I was marked. Blacklisted by my own community. Erased from the neighborhood I grew up in. Victoria wanted me isolated, alone, unstable, easier to break. But I wasn't planning a tantrum. I was building a case. Because while she spread gossip, I was gathering proof. When the world turns against you, you go back to your roots. I climbed into the attic, dusty, silent, untouched, for decades. Behind an old trunk, sealed in a fireproof box, I found it. Deeds, blueprints, handwritten notes from my great-grandfather, Walter Dean. But, most importantly, a water rights agreement dated 1923, signed by the county. Walter didn't just build the bridge. He designed the dam, the bypass channels, the entire spillway system beneath Lake Norwood. And that agreement, it granted Walter and his heirs perpetual flow authority, meaning I had legal control over how much water stayed in the lake. Victoria thought she ruled the shoreline. But I controlled the current. She had bulldozers and fake permits. I had engineering and the law. The lake wasn't hers, it was mine, and soon she'd find out what that meant. Legal control over the lake was powerful, but what I found next, it was nuclear. Buried in the environmental impact report for Oak Ridge Shores Resort, I spotted it. A financing clause tied to water levels. If Lake Norwood dropped more than 18 inches below full pool for over 72 hours, the resort's $4 million loan could be called due immediately, meaning one drought, and they'd drown in debt. I double-checked with my cousin's wife at the State Water Authority, then with my old professor at Texas A&M. It was real. Binding. Ironclad. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy they tried to erase. I was the man holding their entire empire hostage with nothing but a valve. Victoria thought she was playing chess, but I wasn't a pawn, I was the flood, and she'd just given me the perfect legal reason to open the gates. While Victoria kept playing queen, I kept digging. I requested HOA financial records public by law. What I found, a spiderweb of corruption. $8,000 to Harlow, consulting her own shell company. $5,500 to Norwood Maintenance Solutions, run by her nephew. Thousands more to security contracts with her brother-in-law's firm. No bidding, no transparency. All signed off quietly. Invoices for projects that never happened. Payments for repairs no one ever saw. This wasn't just misuse of funds, it was textbook embezzlement. I documented everything. Dates, signatures, bank trails, screenshots, photos, witness names. Victoria thought her HOA crown made her untouchable. But the more I followed the money, the more the noose tightened. And soon I'd prove that destroying my family's bridge wasn't just personal, it was part of a bigger scheme. One built on greed, and about to collapse. Then I found the smoking gun, a document tucked inside an old HOA beautification packet Victoria had slipped under my door months ago. I had signed it casually, thinking it was about tree trimming or shoreline cleanup. But when I compared it to the deed registry, my jaw dropped. That paper had been swapped and refiled as a consent form, authorizing the HOA to use my land, my cabin, as collateral in a shared development loan. Victoria had forged the fine print, and now my family's land was tied into the resort's $4 million debt. If the resort defaulted, I'd lose everything. That was the endgame. Destroy the bridge, isolate me, forge the papers, seize my land, all wrapped in legal paperwork. She wanted to bankrupt the resort, then swoop in and claim my property as damage recovery. But she'd underestimated one thing. I read every line. At that point, emotion gave way to precision. I wasn't fighting Victoria anymore. I was engineering her collapse. I compiled everything: the fake demolition permits, the forged signature, the embezzled funds, the hidden water rights, and the lethal loan clause tied to lake levels. Then I did what she never expected. I stayed quiet. For 3 weeks, I smiled, waved, acted like I'd moved on. Meanwhile, I worked with my professor to authenticate documents, had lawyers verify chain of title, and filed a quiet complaint with the county's fraud unit. I wanted everything airtight, because when I moved, there'd be no room to wiggle. Victoria thought she'd buried me, but I wasn't under the dirt. I was under the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. And when I did, I'd drown her entire empire with truth. I waited until the next HOA board meeting. Victoria strutted in like royalty heels, clicking smile sharp. She didn't know what was coming. I walked in last, carrying one box. Inside, every document, photo, invoice, blueprint, legal notice, every lie she'd signed. I didn't raise my voice, didn't make a speech. I laid the box on the table and said, "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to inform." Her smirk faded as I pulled out the forged demolition order and the real one, untouched, still on file. Then came the fake signature, the land grab, the water rights deed, the loan clause. The room went silent. One board member's hand started shaking. Another pushed back from the table. Victoria finally spoke. "You're bluffing." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, I'm draining the lake." And that's when panic truly began. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked to the old spillway just before dawn. Fog curled over Lake Norwood like a secret. I opened the rusted panel, same one Walter built by hand. Inside, the valve waited. 3 full turns. The lake groaned, then hissed, and began to fall. By noon, the resort's docks were grounded. Kayaks tilted in mud. Tourists posted photos. What happened to the water? Day, 2 fish carcasses floated. Anchors sat in dry sand. News vans showed up. Day 3, the bank called in the loan. $4 million due immediately. Victoria tried to rally the HOA, but chaos erupted. Some demanded her resignation. Others accused me of eco-terrorism. Then the sheriff arrived. "Got a tip you're tampering with infrastructure." I handed him Walter's deed. He read it twice, then sighed. "This is above my pay grade." Victoria wasn't done. She ran to the media, called me dangerous, unstable, a radical. Said I was destroying property values and threatening children. But the more she spoke, the more people started digging. Independent journalists pulled HOA records. Reddit exploded with side-by-side comparisons of forged documents. A whistleblower leaked internal emails, proof of payouts to her husband's company. Unbid contracts to her cousin, her backyard guest house. Built 4 feet into a protected wetland. The story blew up nationally, from HOA drama to organized fraud. Within a week, the county issued a restraining order against Victoria Harlow. Charges: misuse of funds, document forgery, environmental violations. The HOA board voted. She was removed immediately. She left town the next morning, no statement, no apology. But we weren't done, because what we uncovered next made her crimes look like child's play. While Victoria vanished, I followed the trail she left behind. And what I found, it wasn't just about one corrupt HOA president. Bank statements led to shell companies. Shell companies led to names, attorneys, developers, even a county official. Victoria wasn't acting alone. She was part of a property theft ring, targeting elderly homeowners, isolated landowners, anyone with assets but no legal support. They used forged documents, fake permits, intimidation tactics. Then flipped the properties for millions. And Lake Norwood. It was ground zero for their next big move. A full-blown luxury development disguised as community revitalization. I sent everything audio recordings, paper trails, sworn affidavits to a contact at a national investigative outlet. Within 48 hours, the FBI called. This wasn't just fraud, it was racketeering, organized, systemic, deep, and now it was exposed and burning. The firestorm hit hard. Headlines spread Lake Norwood HOA linked to property scam network. But that's when they got desperate. One night, I heard glass shatter. 2 masked men stormed into my cabin. I fought back, but they were fast brutal. A blow to the ribs, a pipe across my shoulder. When I woke up in the hospital, my phone was buzzing. News stations, reporters, family. Outside my room, 2 officers on guard. They'd found evidence burner phones payments tied to Victoria's old accounts. The attack wasn't random. It was retaliation. But they made a mistake. They thought fear would shut me up. Instead, I gave a sworn statement from the hospital bed. Every file I'd collected was already backed up, already distributed. And the final piece, a recorded call, between Victoria and the man who funded it all. His name was Mason Kellerman, real estate mogul, philanthropist, face on every billboard from Norwood to Dallas. But in that call, his voice was clear. Make it look legal. I don't care how. Just get that land signed over. He wasn't just funding the resort. He owned it through 5 shell corporations. He funded Victoria's campaign for HOA president, paid the crooked lawyer, bribed the county clerk. This wasn't about one bridge. It was about swallowing Lake Norwood, turning it into a private playground for billionaires. My case, once a local feud, was now a federal conspiracy investigation. The FBI raided his offices, seized his accounts, subpoenaed city officials. Kellerman denied everything until the recordings aired nationwide. Public outrage exploded. Protests, investigations, dozens of victims came forward with matching stories. We'd ripped the mask off, and the real monster finally had a name. Within days, Lake Norwood became the epicenter of a national scandal. Headlines dominated every platform: billionaire land theft ring exposed. Small-town engineer brings down real estate empire. News crews camped outside my hospital. Senators tweeted support. Victims from other states began sharing eerily similar stories. Forged documents, harassment, mysterious development projects, class action lawsuits flooded in. The Department of Justice launched a task force. But this wasn't just about justice. It was about memory, community, legacy. I gave one interview, just one. Looking into the camera, I said, "They tried to erase my family's name with a bulldozer." I answered with the truth. Victoria Kellerman and 14 others were indicted. Charges: racketeering, fraud, conspiracy, attempted theft. Their empire collapsed. Not with a bang, but under the weight of their own arrogance. And Lake Norwood, it started to heal. The trials were swift, relentless. Federal prosecutors brought receipts, emails, bank transfers, phone recordings, testimonies from victims' whistleblowers, even former employees. Victoria broke first. Faced with decades in prison, she turned state's witness against Kellerman. In court, she cried, talked about pressure manipulation, but no one forgot the videos. Her laughing as the bridge fell, her voice mocking my family's name. Kellerman sat stone-faced as the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. 40 years without parole. Millions in restitution. Frozen assets. His companies dissolved overnight, and the land he tried to steal returned. Not just to me, but to every homeowner they targeted. The resort was seized, turned into a public trust, its gates reopened free. The empire they built on lies and intimidation crumbled under truth. And for the first time in years, Lake Norwood stood silent and safe. 3 months later, I stood at the edge of Lake Norwood. The air was still, the water calm. The county had approved our petition. The bridge was being rebuilt, not a replica A monument. Stone by stone, we laid it with care, just like Walter did a century ago. This time, we named it Walter's Crossing, a tribute to resilience, to legacy, to truth that outlives concrete. Locals came together, some who once doubted me. We shared food stories, tears. And for the first time in years, there was unity. We created a scholarship in Walter's name for young engineers building for the future. The HOA was restructured. New leadership, new rules, real transparency. No more secrets, no more shadows. Just water, flowing where it's meant to, not by power or fear, but by design. Life didn't snap back overnight, but something had shifted. The resort, once a symbol of greed, was now community-owned. No gates, no exclusivity. Locals fished off its docks. Kids swam where members-only signs once stood. The cabin, still mine, still standing, now protected by a preservation easement. No HOA could ever touch it again. Victoria's name erased from every file, plaque, and vote. No more fines, no more fake inspections, no more men with mirrored glasses taking pictures of my gutters. Instead, we had something real Bridge Day. Every July 7th, the town gathers. Live music, catfish fry, fireworks over the water, and, as the sun sets, I stand on Walter's Crossing, feeling the stone beneath me, feeling him beneath me, and I remember they tried to destroy a legacy, but instead, they cemented it. Not long after the National Registry of Historic Places made it official, Walter's Crossing was now a protected landmark. Reporters asked me what it meant. I told them, it's not just about a bridge. It's about a name, about not letting people in power rewrite your family's story. My great-grandfather didn't leave behind money. He left behind something stronger. Design, purpose, honor. And now his work would stand for generations. School kids come to learn about civil engineering. Architecture students study the spillway system. Tourists stop, read the plaque, and whisper, "Wow." He built that, but what they don't see are the battles behind it, the nights I almost gave up, the weight of being alone and choosing to fight anyway. This bridge didn't just survive, it stood because someone said, you don't get to bulldoze history. People like to cheer for the ending, the victory, the justice, the applause. But what they never see is the quiet middle. The weeks when your friends stop calling, when your mailbox fills with threats instead of bills, when doubt creeps in like a draft beneath a locked door, cold constant whispering, let it go, it's not worth it. There were nights I stared at the ceiling wondering if I was becoming exactly who they said I was, angry, paranoid, broken. But then I'd walk to the lake. I'd feel the ground where Walter once stood, blueprints in one hand, hammer in the other, and I'd remember, he built for permanence. He didn't bend when others doubted him. So, why should I? You don't hold the line because it's easy. You hold it because if no one does, everything worth keeping disappears. When the headlines faded and the cameras left, what remained wasn't silence, it was clarity. Neighbors who once looked away now waved. Kids rode bikes across Walter's Crossing like it had always been there. And the lake, once drained by truth, began to fill again this time, not just with water, but with trust. The HOA became what it should have been all along, a voice for the people, not a weapon against them. Meetings open to the public, budgets posted online, questions welcomed, not punished. I was asked to join the new board. I said no, not out of bitterness, but because I had already played my part. I'd done what needed doing, and now it was up to others to protect what we rebuilt. Legacy isn't something you own. It's something you earn stone by stone, voice by voice, choice by choice. Victoria took her shot. Kellerman took his. They had power lawyers influence fear, but in the end, none of it was enough. Because there's one thing people like them never understand: legacy isn't in paperwork. It's not in titles or property lines. It's in memory, in roots, in the stories passed down around dinner tables and fire pits. They tried to bulldoze a bridge and accidentally uncovered a foundation they couldn't shake. Now, Walter Dean's name isn't just etched into stone. It's part of the town's heartbeat, and mine. It doesn't matter if they forget it, because this was never about me. It was about holding the line for every family who's ever been told to stay quiet. Sign here. Walk away. They couldn't steal our land, they couldn't steal our voice, and they damn sure couldn't steal our story. Every July 7th now the town gathers for Bridge Day. What started as a small cookout has become a tradition. Live music echoes over the water kids, cannonball off the dock, elders raise a glass to the past. They tell the story, not just of the bridge, but of the fight behind it. I watch from the sidelines, quiet, proud. Sometimes a reporter asks for a quote, but I always say the same thing: let the bridge speak for itself. This year, we awarded our first Walter Dean Scholarship to a young woman who wants to study sustainable water systems. Her parents cried when she crossed that bridge, and I realized something Victoria tried to make me feel small, insignificant, forgettable. But every brick she tried to bury me with, we turned into a foundation and built something stronger. A month after Bridge Day, I found an old envelope buried in a desk drawer. Faded ink, Walter Dean's handwriting, addressed simply to whoever keeps the water flowing. Inside was a letter. No grand speech, just wisdom. If they ever come for this land, don't meet them with anger. Meet them with knowledge, with patience, and if that fails, build again. I read it 3 times. Felt every word like a hand on my shoulder. Walter knew the world would change. He knew men like Kellerman would rise. But he believed in structure, in purpose, in the quiet strength of those who choose to preserve instead of destroy. I folded the letter, placed it in a new box, and sealed it. Labeled it Next Time, because there's always a next time. And when it comes, someone will be ready, with stone, with truth, and with fire in their heart. Some nights I still walk down to the lake alone. No cameras, no speeches, just the sound of a water lapping gently against the dock. I run my hand along the limestone rail of Walter's Crossing, feel the ridges, the weight, the permanence. This bridge, it isn't just structure. It's proof. That truth, no matter how buried, rises. That bullies don't win forever. That legacies, when protected, echo louder than fear. I see kids skipping rocks across the surface, no idea what once threatened to drown this place. And I smile because they don't need to know every detail. They only need to feel safe to dream freely, to inherit something worth believing in. Victoria tried to control the narrative, tried to turn the current. But water remembers. It finds its path. And every drop that flows under this bridge now flows with purpose. Don't ever let someone bulldoze your legacy. Not with charm, not with paperwork, not with fear. What's yours? What was built with love, sweat, and memory deserves to be protected. Know your rights. Learn the system. And when power tries to silence you, don't yell stand. Use truth. Use patience. Use knowledge like armor. Because sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. It comes through persistence, resilience, and a single deliberate choice. Sometimes, to defend what's yours, you have to let the water rise and let it speak louder than any threat ever could. If this story moved you, if you've ever faced injustice or stood alone against it, leave a comment, share your truth, because your voice matters. And if you'd like more stories like this, tap like, subscribe, and join us again next time. From my heart, thank you for listening. Truly.